Don't be a stranger in the night. Take a chance for some romance. Don't cover your eyes. Willow trees know you better than anyone else. It's time you let your guard down for someone like me. I'd say I'm settled and pretty calm. Don't storm in the storm. If not me, then someone like me that knows what to do and how to take care of you. Most of all, that deserves you. The sweetest red cheeks I'd ever seen. You stand beside me in every dream. Angel goddess, you cover them all. Say, what can I do to get you to fall for someone like me? I'd say I'm settled and a pretty cold. Don't storm in the storm. If not me, then someone like me that knows what to do, how to take care of you. But most of all, that deserves you. 'Cause most of all, that deserves you. It's crucial.
Hey guys, Arleesha here, and welcome to another video. Hope you guys didn't mind the slow start to this one. I wanted to just kind of take our time with unwrapping these paints, and we're going to jump right into swatching, and then I will talk to you about them very soon. And this is about the time where my camera battery died. Anyway, first swatch got off to not the best start, but these paints were sent to me by Hunter, and Hunter is a student who's actually just getting started with paint making. I've actually already seen a couple other YouTubers talk about these paints. Danica Sills talked about them, and maybe Kat from Meow Meow Kapow, I think she talked about them too. So Hunter has been busy with sending these paints off to a few other people to get their opinions, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to look at some more handmade paints. I've also had the opportunity to connect with Hunter a little bit and talk to him about these paints and what he thinks of them, and some adjustments that he's been making, and you know, his whole process since I've been making my own paints as well. So it's really nice to get to connect with the paint makers on this kind of stuff. I'll leave all of Hunter's links to his Etsy shop as well as his Instagram page down in the description, so you guys can check them out. Please do, because these paints are pretty special and I have been enjoying using them very, very much. Hunter and I were talking, and he told me that he actually kind of picked out some colors that he thought that I would really like, and Hunter did a fantastic job with picking colors that kind of suited what I wanted really nicely. The only color that I had the tiniest bit of an issue with in the very beginning was this dark burnt sienna, and as you can see, it just kind of didn't reactivate, but I let it sit with a little bit of water, and then it was much more cooperative, if still a bit grainy. But Hunter and I have talked about that, and he said that he's changed the recipe for that color since then, and it's performing much better. I'm kind of all over the place and not really getting started very thoroughly with this whole video review, but the Moonlight Gray, which was it, or Midnight Gray? Moon Gray? Moon Gray was really interesting. It's a combo of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and I really love the way it granulates. It's a little bit like a Payne's Gray, but it has such a high granulation level that it really is its own unique thing. And I figured since there weren't a ton of colors in this set, it would probably be worthwhile to make a color chart. And I actually really love the way the mixes with phthalo blue and that vegan raw sienna, both of those two colors mix beautiful, beautiful mixes. And one thing I noticed almost right away with these paints was that this palette is very, very warm overall. Mostly that has to do with the yellows. So the PY 154 is a deep warm yellow, kind of like a medium-ish warm yellow, and then there's that Quin Gold, which is special. We'll talk about that in just a second. And these two yellowy orange colors were kind of the base for my yellow mixes. Yellows are super important. They're kind of like foundational, especially for me because I do a lot of work with skin tones. So while reds are very, very important, yellows are what kind of shift the entire mood of painting skin tones for me. So having very warm skin tones, I usually mix with a cool yellow. Like in my personal handmade watercolors, I use my nickel titanium yellow, which is very cool, and that gets me some really nice desaturated oranges to use for skin tones. And in the case of this, I had a slightly cooler red to use for that application, and it was just a very different experience working with these warmer colors, but I actually really, really loved them. If you guys are interested, I will have prints as well as the original for this piece available for sale on my shop, so you can check that out down below. Let's talk a little bit about that Quin Gold because it's kind of special, guys. The Quinacridone Gold that Hunter makes is made from PO49, and if you're familiar with the entire weird watercolor world, then you may know that PO49 is a pigment, was the original pigment that was used to make Quinacridone Gold, and it's since run out. You can't really buy paints made with this pigment anymore. But there are some paint making suppliers, so people who have the pigment PO49 for sale, so you can make your own paints out of PO49, and Hunter has jumped on this opportunity and has been making this beautiful Quin Gold with PO49. It's a very orangey gold, which I actually really, really love. It does dilute down into some slightly lighter yellowish tones while still having that nice orange golden vibrancy, and it actually mixes really beautifully with the other colors. The PR 254, which is the red included in this set, is one of my favorite red pigments. I absolutely love it, and I have a red of my own handmade watercolors that uses this pigment as well, and it mixes so gorgeously with that Quinacridone Gold. Also, the Midnight Violet, which is a mix of PR 254 and PB 29, which is ultramarine blue, is a beautiful, slightly granulating purple that mixes really nicely with that gold as well. It creates these beautiful, super warm, rich brown colors, and I honestly couldn't resist adding brown and green to this painting, even though it's kind of skin tones. And the colors that I was able to mix from these paints it was so beautiful. I couldn't resist adding colors that I wouldn't normally add to my pieces. I kind of tend to stick to a slightly limited range, even though I use a lot of different colors for skin. It's within this, range, this limited window of color. But with these paints, I really kind of took advantage of the fact that there were so many possibilities, and the paints, when mixed with one another, and this is a beautiful characteristic of handmade paints that Hunter has really kind of nailed, and that's that handmade paints have so much character. We haven't really gotten to talk about the pros and cons of handmade paints versus commercially manufactured paints. There are pros and cons to making your own handmade paints. Obviously, it takes a lot of time. There can be initial monetary investment that can be a little bit difficult to manage if you're not, ready to make that investment. It can be cheaper, and we'll talk about that in a future video. One of the biggest things that you're going to have with handmade paints that is a pro or a con depending on what you're used to or what you want. Handmade paints have a lot of individual character, so they're not going to be, oftentimes they're not always as fine-tuned as commercially produced paints because we're just people mulling paints with our hands, and that means that the colors may have different textures on the paper when they're wet, or varying amounts of texture when the paint is dry, and they also look very different in pans from one another because each color, each pigment requires a different recipe. We talked about that a little bit in my watercolor binder video, and depending on the amount of binder that's used, there can also be varying amounts of honey or glycerin in each paint. So they have a lot of variation from color to color with varying tinting strengths, and handmade paints, it's a gorgeous thing, and I actually really love getting to learn about handmade paints in that way, not just my own, but ones made by other awesome people like Hunter. And let's be honest here, guys, I've kind of been feeling this disconnect with the world of paint reviews lately, like breaking watercolors down and reviewing everything and talking about all the information and whether it's good or bad. And to be honest, I want to do more of like showcases. So it's kind of a review because I'm showing you the paints, but it's also a showcase. I just want to show you things and tell you if I like them or not. And I like these. I love these paints. Hunter also included a titanium white, which I kind of didn't use in this piece, but it makes colors actually beautifully opaque and a little bit more of a gouache-like consistency. Not completely gouache because it's missing that chalk element that you have in gouache, but it's a beautiful white, and I didn't use it in this piece, but it mixes really nicely with the other colors. Oh my goodness, where has the time gone, guys? This is very rambly.
Why'd you put the tape there?
Taped? Why do I tape down pieces?
Yeah.
It's taped down so that it stays flat while I'm painting, because if it gets wet, the paper will ripple and curl, and then it creates a nice border on the edge too. What, baby?
Can I help?
Perfect!
But there's no ridge here.
Yeah, because there's no paint there. That's okay. Thank you. Oh gosh, what are we doing? Thank you for watching this video, guys. I really like these paints. I love them. They're beautiful, and you can check them out down in the description if you're interested. Thank you so much to Hunter for sending these paints to me. Thank you guys for listening to me literally just ramble for a while. And oh gosh, this paint is available for sale as well as prints. You can check it out in the description, and I will talk to you guys in the next time. Okay, wow. Okay, bye guys. Because it's an erasable colored pencil, baby.
I thought the zero colored pencils could be erased.